This video is brought to you by dankritual.com. If you use the promo code DREW10 at checkout, you can get 10% off of your order of the tan or green 2-player cloth playmats. Get your playmat today. What is up, everybody? It is Drew, Traveler of the Burning Abyss, back here with another video, and we're doing an updated Burning Abyss deck profile for the current April format of 2022. And I think that this deck is definitely not tier 1. It's definitely a rogue contender, but I think that the proper pilot of this deck can do very well with it. It's just a matter of playing things out perfectly to the best of your ability and knowing the matchups in the meta. This deck really relies on knowing your opponent's deck. Like I will say this over and over again. Anyone who is successful with Burning Abyss is usually successful with it because they know the opponent's deck just as well as they know their own. It's a very difficult deck to play, but it's absolutely phenomenal and very, very powerful. So before we hop into the profile, if you guys are not subscribed already, make sure you go ahead and smash that subscribe button, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload more cool and awesome videos just like the one you're watching right now. And obviously give the video a thumbs up because it helps out a whole lot with my analytics. So without further ado, let's take a look at the Burning Abyss deck profile. All right, so this is slightly different than my prior iterations of the deck. This isn't a trap variation. There really isn't many traps in the deck at all, but I think that this variation has a fantastic amount of possibilities because of what the meta currently is. This version is kind of like a Zeus Turbo with a bunch of ways to kind of play through your opponent's board. So the Burning Abyss lineups, we're playing 3 copies of Graph and 3 copies of Seer. And most people know that I've been on 2 Seer for a while, but for this list, I've bumped it up to 3. And I think that it's pretty good at 3 in this variation. You can banish it off of certain cards, so you don't have to worry about seeing multiples. And if you mill it and you don't want to mill it, well, you still have other ones that you can use. So like having 3 Seer really isn't the end of the world, and I think that this is actually somewhat decent. And the 3 Graph is obviously a necessity. I think we all know that. It's the best main deck Burning Abyss, really, when it comes to getting everything started in your combos. The 2 ofs, I play 2 Skarm and 2 Farfa. I'm not playing any other 2 ofs. Then in total, the Graph, the Seer, the Skarm, and the Farfa are the only Burning Abyss monsters that I'm playing multiples of. All of the other Burning Abyss monsters that I have are just 1 ofs. So we have 1 copy of Barbar, 1 copy of Calcab, 1 copy of Libic, 1 copy of Alec. I'm just going to kind of smush these together a little bit. And lastly, 1 copy of Rubik, just because it's another name. Kind of need names in this deck. That's pretty important. You know, it's absolutely fantastic to have more Burning Abyss names. Opening any 2 Burning Abyss monsters basically grants you a Zeus, which is awesome. And if you need to go into something like a Cherubini, you can obviously go into a Cherubini too. That's an option. So you have a lot of things that you can do with this deck, which is fantastic. So playing these 5, I think, is great. As far as which ones are essential, I would say these 4 are definitely essential. This is interchangeable for whatever name you want. I just wanted to play a shinier Burning Abyss, so I went with the Rubik. Then we have our supporting Burning Abyss cards, or honorary Burning Abyss cards, 3 Rhino and 2 Tour Guide. I think that this is pretty standard right now. I think 3 and 2 is great. I don't think Tour Guide is needed to be 3 of in any variation of Burning Abyss. I think if you're playing Phantom Knights, you could play it if you're not playing like the Adventure Package. But in Burning Abyss, 2 Tour Guide, perfectly fine. No need to play more than that. It's not even something that you really want to start your turn with. Like, you'd rather search it off of Skarm and use it on the following turn. Whereas the Rhino Warrior you want to see because your opponent's not going to be able to like ash it or something like that. So I think that that's a pretty solid lineup there. Then for our supporting engine, We have 2 copies of Hydrolander and 1 Fairy Tale Snow. I would very much so advise against playing a 3rd Hydrolander because 3 can get very cloggy. It's not like we have 3 seconds light to go ahead and recycle everything. We are not privileged enough to have 3 seconds light right now, so we have to stick with the Hydrolander at 2 because putting cards back in is a little more difficult. But the Fairy Tale Snow does help a lot too. You go and you do those mills off Hydrolander, and if you have to chain the snow to get rid of duplicates, you can, and you still get the resolve, and then you get a Book of Moon on top of it. So that's pretty darn sweet if you ask me. Now we'll move on to the hand traps because we are playing hand traps in this variation, and this is probably the weirdest lineup of hand traps that I have played in a deck in a very long time, if not of all time. But I'll do my best to go over it and explain why. So we have 2 Ash Blossom, 2 Ghost Bell, 2 Ogre, 2 Droll, 2 Veiler, and 3 Imperm. So 13 hand traps in total. I think that the monster lineup, having the 2 ofs, the 10 in total, 5 monsters overall that are 2 ofs, is absolutely fantastic. I think that it helps a lot with the Hydrolander engine, and on top of that, it gives you a lot of variation as to what you see in your hand for hand traps. So there's a lot of decks in the meta right now that lose to a multitude of hand traps. They just kind of get hit and hurt in their combos to where they can't continue certain things in certain lines. And I think having all of these cards helps you hit each of those decks and then some. So, you know, I'm not going to go over what all these hand traps do because everybody already knows, but I think that the important thing to keep in mind is the fact that you have a bunch of hand traps that are going to be countering different meta decks and still serve a purpose against almost every single meta deck, just strictly based off of how hand trap heavy the format is and how combo heavy the format is. Being able to just smack a combo deck with like 2 hand traps and then just summon 2 BAs and then just make a Zeus, like you probably just win the game. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. So I think that this is definitely a required evil, as much as I hate to say it. 13 hand traps and Burning Abyss is kind of crazy. And then we do play another Going Second card, and that's 3 Droplet, because like why would we not just go ahead and counter the board like that? That seems pretty good. If you open up multiple BA names too, you can trigger effects in Grave, which is pretty cool. So yeah, the droplets are dope, really dope. And lastly, Foolish Burial. I'm very back and forth on whether I want to play this or whether I want to play Call by the Grave, but every time that I've seen Foolish, it's helped me get to more combos that can kind of just push my board forward. So I'm kind of leaning towards Foolish. It's a 40-card deck. I'm not going up to 41. I want to keep it at 40. I'm not playing like the DP engine or anything in this variation. This variation is a lot more Zeus Turbo-esque than anything else. So I've opted to just kind of stick to this variation because it seems to be one of those builds that you can just kind of play and grind out and just make it so your opponent doesn't have a board, and then you just swing at them and, you know, kind of poke them down over and over again until they just can't move anymore. But that's the main deck, 40 cards, like I said. I'm not going to go super in depth with a lot of those explanations. Like I said, most of it is pretty standard, and it's just that we're playing a bunch of hand traps rather than actual traps, and now we don't lose to Twin Twister. That's the fun part. No losing the Twin Twister, evenly matched. It's not going to wreck our back row. But let's go ahead and hop on over to the extra deck and take a look at what we're playing other than Dante. Alrighty, so now it is time for the extra deck, and the extra deck I think is pretty standard. I don't think anything about it is exceptionally different from what I've played in the past. So obviously we have our 2 Dantes. You don't need a third. If you're going to like a third Dante, you're probably making too many Dantes. That or you're not looping your resources properly, one or the other. I think that 2 is perfectly fine. And seeing we're playing the 2, we of course have to play the Beatrice, because why wouldn't we play the Beatrice? And considering we have the Beatrice, we also play the purple Dante. This is pretty good. I think that 4 is the proper lineup. If Beatrice comes back to anything more than 1, obviously we would up it. probably to 2. I think if the card was at 3, I'd still only play 2 because I think that, you know, 3 would be way too much, like way too cloggy. So I think that playing the 4 total is actually pretty dope. Then the other XYZ monsters, got a Break Sword and a Fortune Tune for our other rank 3s, which means we can then do our Downward and 2 Zeus, not 1, that's right, 2. A while back, I was playing 2, and then for a long time, I cut it down to 1. And after testing lately and seeing how the meta is, I think a second one is actually really important. Like being able to use this and, you know, then your opponent gets rid of it, and then on your next turn you're able to make another one. Like that's just bonkers to me. Being able to play this card and then just make it again. Like the OCG has this, I think they still have this card limited. I'm 90% sure they have this card still limited in OCG. Which is understandable, but like the fact that we have it at 3, I'm gonna keep playing it at 3. Like that's just pretty darn good. So then that's all for the XYZs. On to the links. We do play the Cherubini for the link climbing aspect. You can go to Nightmare Unicorn very easily with this, and a lot of times you can also make access code with it too, which is also pretty important. Then we have the Masquerena, because turn 1, you just, you know, do your standard combo. You make your Masquerena and your Beatrice, and then you pass, and then you're able to Unicorn and Beatrice interrupt. Like, that's pretty simple. Then I play a copy of Dark. Because all of your BAs are dark monsters, like, you can go ahead and make this, and if your opponent had popped one of your cards with, like, a DP, you can steal their DP, which seems kind of ridiculous. You could also just use it to link climb. You know, you steal a dark monster, and then you make a unicorn, so on and so forth. So Dark is actually really good. Then we have a Nightmare Phoenix and a Nightmare Unicorn and an access code. The extra deck is a little tight on space, but if like you're sitting there and you're going, wow, I don't know if I want to play a second Zeus, you could always swap a second Zeus for something else. But I think that it would be ridiculous not to play 2 Zeus. Like, the card is just so good. So yeah, we'll stick with the 2 Zeus in my list. But that's the extra deck. I'm gonna go ahead and hop on over to the side deck and kind of see what we're doing to counter the meta post game 1. All right, so no surprise here as you look at the first card in my side deck. It's the card that I side deck in every single meta, and that is Artifact Lancia. Now, I'm only side decking 2 because, as I mentioned in the main deck portion of the video, I don't want to have like any issues at all with like getting too many multiples in Grave without like Fairy Tale Snow, because I need my Hydrolanders to resolve when I have them. So I went with 2 Lancia, and I think 2 Lancia is correct. Then I have, for the dumpable cards, I have the Token Collector and the Necroworld Banshee alongside the Zombie Worlds. So I was watching a couple videos, and I saw a lot of people starting to do this now because of Fluanderies, and obviously that's a huge thing. But there are going to be rogue matchups that this is also really good against. The first one that pops the head is Tri-Brigade. Like, the Zombie World Necrobanshee combo just demolishes Tri-Brigade. So yeah, there's other matchups too, obviously, but I just wanted to point that out specifically. And then the Token Collector, this is like really good against most stuff right now. Hurts the Adventure Package. It hurts Cyberus Eldritch. It hurts Sword Soul. Like, hurts the Auroradon combo. Like Token Collector is really good. You just dump it off of Beatrice, and you can just play for free, and your opponent can't play anything. It's pretty darn sweet. Then back row removal, we got a good chunk of this. 3 Lightning and 3 Twin. I opted not to play Cosmic because I just figure that I can twin their stuff away. And when I twin it away, if I need to make a Zeus to like avoid more back row, I can. And you know, that's the benefit of Zeus, is that he just does great things. And Lightning Storm can be for monsters or back row. So like, if your opponent has some sort of combo board up where they have a couple negates, you can always bait out a negation with a Lightning Storm. And if you have something like a Forbidden Droplet, then you can always chain a Droplet and still wipe their board. So that's pretty important. Then lastly, our going first cards that we side in, I'm going with my personal favorite, and that is Anti-Spell Fragrance. I have loved this card since Burning Abyss became a deck. You can just play 3 of this card, and your opponent is going to sit there and be like, oh man, like I don't know what to do. I didn't think they were playing back row because there were so many hand traps, and then they just lose to something like Anti-Spell because they can't activate Rite of Amnesia, they can't activate Prankid's Place, they can't activate any of their other spell cards for the entire duration of the turn, and then you're just gonna go ahead and summon a Zeus and wipe their board when they have all their set spells that they're waiting a turn to activate. So yeah, the anti-spell is actually very, very powerful. Don't underestimate this card. If you don't have copies of this card and you're playing Burning Abyss or any trap deck, make sure you pick these up. Like this is integral to any trap strategy or any you know, control based strategy too. But that is the entirety of the side deck. That does wrap up the deck profile. A little bit of a shorter video. I didn't want to go ridiculously in depth because I have done so many Burning Abyss videos, but I figured I'd show you guys the updated version of what I'm playing, and maybe if the video gets enough thumbs up, I can do a test hand video because I know everybody loves my Burning Abyss test hand videos. So make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button so we can go ahead and do so. Let's say 50 likes, and I'll do a test hand video of this deck, this variation, and you guys can see exactly what it does. But other than the thumbs up, make sure you guys go ahead and smash the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload more videos just like this one. And for right now, this is Drew, Traveler of the Burning Abyss, signing out.